lose the re-election in 2026?
Absolutely not. No, I want to see him succeed. But again, my loyalty is to the American people, to my kids and grandkids. We cannot continue to mortgage their future. The transfer of wealth from old people like me to young people is literally immoral. What's been happening, it has to stop. And
then you have MAGA Republican Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky saying that he thinks there's at least 4 Republicans who are opposed to the spending bill. He says the key thing for him, if you want his support, is you've got to get rid of the provision that increases the debt ceiling by $4 to $5 trillion. But the thing is, if you don't increase the debt ceiling by $4 to $5 trillion, the whole thing falls apart, because you have to increase the debt ceiling because it's going to add money. It's going to add debt. It's going to eventually increase our deficit. So it's kind of a poison pill, what he's talking about here. Here, play this clip.
Do you have 3 other Republicans who will stand with you to block this bill?
I think there are 4 of us at this point, and I would be very surprised if the bill at least is not modified in a good direction. Look, I want to vote for it. I'm for the tax cuts. I voted for the tax cuts before. I want the tax cuts to be permanent. But at the same time, I don't want to raise the debt ceiling $5 trillion. So I've told him, if you take the debt ceiling off the bill, in all likelihood, I can vote for what the agreement is on the rest of the bill. And it doesn't have to be perfect to my liking, but I can't be. If I vote for the $5 trillion debt, who's left in Washington that cares about the debt? We will have lost. But the GOP will own the debt once they vote for this.
And then you have Rand Paul, again, MAGA Republican senator, just saying, look, the math behind the spending bill just doesn't add up. He says the increase in spending is going to far exceed the cuts that were made by DOGE. Play this clip.
Just heard the Treasury Secretary say a number of things, dismiss the potential price increases that could come from the tariffs when it comes to retailers. He also played down the cost of this tax and border bill that just passed through the House. Do you agree with his math?
Well, the math doesn't really add up. One of the things this big and beautiful bill is it's a vehicle for increasing spending for the military and for the border. It's about $320 billion in new spending. To put that in perspective, that's more than all the DOGE cuts that we found so far. So the increase in spending put into this bill exceeds the DOGE cuts. When you look just at the border wall, they have $46.5 billion for the border wall. Well, the current estimate from the CBP is $6.5 million per mile. So if you did 1,000 miles, that's $6.5 billion. But they have $46 billion. So they've inflated the cost of the wall 8-fold. So there's a lot of new spending that has to be counteracted. But essentially, this is a bill by the military industrial complex advocates who are padding the military budget. There's going to be a lot of extra money. Look, the president has essentially stopped the border flow without new money and without any new legislation. So I think they're asking for too much money. And in the end, the way you add it up to see if it actually is going to save money or add money is how much debt are they going to borrow? $5 trillion over 2 years. It's an enormous amount.
Right.
Well, MAGA Republican Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky, DOGE didn't do any cuts. They didn't. DOGE added to federal spending. There's more federal spending month over month now than there was under former President Biden. That's just a fact. And you are right, though, that with this disastrous budget bill, the work of DOGE is going to be, triply or quadruply disastrous, or even more, because it's going to add $4 to $5 trillion to the deficit at least. And I think it's going to be actually far more than that. So what MAGA Mike Johnson's trying to say to salvage all of this is he's trying to say, look, the Congressional Budget Office, that is the nonpartisan group within Congress that ranks these budget bills and spending bills and says, here's what it's going to add to the deficit. MAGA Mike's like, they're radical left. They're like communist. They're like a communist leftist group, to which point you have Kristen Welker on Meet the Press say, but you've always cited the Congressional Budget Office reports when there was a Democrat in the White House. So now because Trump's in office, you're now saying you don't like the CBO? Here, play this clip.
In 2017, actually, the CBO was pretty right when you adjusted for inflation. But let me read you something that you said back in 2021 about the CBO. This was in relation to a Democratic bill. You said the CBO has confirmed this bill adds nearly $400 billion to the deficit, contrary to the White House's claim that the bill is paid for. So do you only believe the CBO when a Democrat is president, Mr. Speaker?
No, this is very easy to explain. The CBO sometimes gets projections correct, but they're always off every single time when they project economic growth. They always underestimate the growth that will be brought about by tax cuts and reduction in regulations. Look.
And then, the tactic by MAGA Mike Johnson, though, is just basically to lie. He's like a wind-up doll, like a whiny wind-up doll who just will look you right in the eyes and lie. And Kristen Welker says, if the big, beautiful bill does add to the debt, is Trump going to own that? Are you going to add to the fact that this is going to add to the debt? To which MAGA Mike Johnson goes, I promise you it's not going to happen. I guarantee you it's not going to happen. It absolutely is. By the way, it happened during Trump's first term. Trump added $8 trillion. $8 trillion to the deficit in his first term. 25% of our deficit comes from Donald Trump. 30% comes from Trump's first term. But play this clip.
Mr. Speaker, if the big, beautiful bill does add to the debt, will President Trump own that?
It's not going to add to the debt, but I can tell you that President Trump is laser focused on two primary things: delivering on his campaign promises and the America First agenda, which is what a record number of 77 million voters, popular votes, requested and demanded and gave us a mandate to do. But he's also concerned, as I am, as Ron Johnson is, as Rand Paul is, as all of us are, about the nation's debt. And he and I talk about this frequently, and he is excited about changing that trajectory. That President Trump, I think, can be the most consequential president of the modern era because he has these opportunities to do these big things. The one big beautiful bill is a big first step to provide relief for the American people, to give everybody more take-home pay, more money in their pocket, and to change the trajectory of the country. And again, it's the first of a number of steps, and President Trump is committed to doing this.
Mr. Speaker, the Joint Committee on Taxation, the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, the Tax Foundation, the Penn-Wharton budget model all say this will add trillions of dollars to the deficit. Are you really telling the American people this will not add one penny to the debt and deficit? You can guarantee that?
I am telling you this is going to reduce the deficit. I mean, you cite some of these figures. Do you know what their economic growth projections are? The Committee for Responsible Budgeting, they're not even, I don't think they're assuming any economic growth. I mean, that's not realistic.
Next up, Kristen Welker asks MAGA Mike Johnson, do you have any evidence that the individuals who get Medicaid are out there defrauding the system? You seem to suggest that there are all these people out there who are so desperate for healthcare that they lie about their physical conditions in order to get healthcare. That's probably a bigger indictment on our healthcare system if you actually think about it. I'll show you what MAGA Mike says, but I want to remind everybody that the big fraud when it comes to Medicaid is the providers and the provider groups who double bill or triple bill. That's where it comes from, and there's lots of criminal prosecutions. Rarely do you see it come from a individual seeking health care. But play the clip.
Do you have any actual evidence that these people that you refer to are engaging in fraud?
Well, there is a tremendous amount of fraud in Medicaid. It's undisputed. Tens of billions of dollars every year are lost in fraud to Medicaid. So there's another category of people, 1.2 million, that are totally ineligible to be on the program. We also have evidence of people who are listed and enrolled in multiple programs in multiple states simultaneously, and they are cheating the system. I'm going to say this very clearly. Yeah. Our legislation preserves Medicaid, strengthens Medicaid for the people who actually need it and deserve it. And we're going to get rid of the fraud, waste, and abuse, and that is a long time overdue.
And some of what you are.
So then you got to bring in Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. He's the worst at this. And when he's on Face the Nation on CBS, he's asked, okay, even Speaker Johnson says that there's going to be about $4 to $5 trillion added to the debt over the next 10 years. What do you say about that? I mean, MAGA Mike Johnson claims that, oh, well, it's going to be offset by the $5.1 trillion that Trump's brought in from the Middle East, which he didn't. Trump did